everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and sometimes something a little extra like this show as a teaser.
Kind of
And
like something really cool and big and unexpected, kind of like
that's
that.
exactly right. Even though we did sort of tease it last week, our 3.5
Yeah, we did.
viewers may remember this
But
week.
here we are.
I
We
know.
got a good one, people. Should we just dive right into the good
Yes.
book talk so we can maybe get to this elusive bonus thing that we're talking about?
Bonus content, yes. There's
Okay.
bonus content this episode, and I'm real excited to share it. But first, I want to know what you've been reading this week, my friend. So lay it on us.
Fantastic. Well, this is one of those rare times where I've only done this maybe a couple times. I'm halfway through a book, but I'm very comfortable book talking it right now, saying I think you should read it right now. So good. I had the chance to do some learning from Malcolm Gladwell. Had never read anything by Gladwell before. And after listening to this video series I listened to, I'm like, I got to read Malcolm Gladwell. So I chose a book. I actually asked a media specialist in our district, and she said, oh, I think you should start with this one. So this is what she recommended.
Okay.
It is David and Goliath, and it's been so good. Just the story of how, and it so applies to really, I think, anything that people might encounter, any challenge or big system, or anytime you might feel like a misfit or feel like someone else has an advantage. It just talked about within that reality, there also might be opportunities to I don't know, capitalize or think about it differently, not to negate the offset of whether it's wealth or power or
Brad, we lost your sound.
Thank you,
There you
Jen. What
are.
would I do without you?
You're
Don't
back.
answer that. Yeah, you know what? I'd be on mute a while. I have a lot of good surprises in front of me, so that's why I hit the
Yes,
sound bar again.
that's right.
But anyway, this book has been so good, and I love how Gladwell, so many things. I'm just soaking it all in. I love the approach, the writing style, but the kind of diverse examples, and then how also he has taken in David versus Goliath something pretty well expected, like just a story of the interpretation of David and Goliath and how a lot of human beings kind of how they think about that.
Yeah.
And then just said, but what if we looked at it differently? Or actually, he says, we actually should look at it differently. And here are some of the facts that support why. So this is the one I just wanted to share. It's one of those rare times. Usually I do young adult novels or picture books, but this is more in the lines of a professional read or an adult read, right? Is that
Yes.
what you would call it, Jen?
Yeah, it's written for adults. Absolutely. And I don't know that it was, like, I haven't read this one, but I've read other Gladwell books, and I'm not sure that it was written, like for a specific group, but often his books have a leadership theme and that kind of stuff. So while it may not be written specifically for teachers or school administrators, there's often a lot you can take from his books that are applicable to our work. So that's great. It's so funny, Brad, because Brad and I have a pregame show. Like, we have our meeting before the meeting where we just sort of chat and catch up, and we don't script our program at all or anything like that. But you had mentioned that you were feeling like maybe your book talk was disconnected from the rest of our show. But I actually hear a lot of connections between your book that you've been reading this week and the one that I read this week. I actually read this book a long time ago as an ARC, but it only just came out like last week. So I've been sort of holding it, like secret until it was time for it to come out. And it's one of those books. Remember earlier this year, we talked about how sometimes I feel like in my mind, I have a Brad Gustafson bookshelf. And when I read something, I put it on that shelf. Well, this is definitely a book for your bookshelf. So add it to your list. But also that idea of misfits and feeling like you maybe aren't good enough, or wondering if you're really up to the task ahead of you, or feeling like you're not really what people expect or need you to be. Those themes sort of run through the book that I want to share this week, which is A Rover's Story by Jasmine Warga. And this book, I've been thinking about how I'm going to book talk it because it's a really unique book in the way it's written. It is about a Mars rover named Rez, who is headed to Mars for a mission to try to find out whether or not there's ever been water or bacterial life on Mars. And we follow Rez's journey from the moment that he gains consciousness, where his brain, his computer brain flips on, to the moment that, well, I don't want to tell you, until throughout his entire life is what I'll say. And during that time, we know that Rez has been programmed to go to Mars because he can do things that humans can't. Things like have multiple eyes all over, his body, so he can see things from lots of different perspectives. He has wheels that are built specifically to navigate the Mars terrain. But most importantly, Rez was not programmed to have human emotions. And so therefore, the theory is that Rez is going to make decisions that are not clouded by emotions when he gets to Mars. However, as Rez observes the human beings in the lab, the scientists who were tasked to build and to program him, he begins to question and try to understand things about human emotions, and begins to feel things that feel a little bit like an emotion. He begins to wonder whether or not he's really up to the task to go to Mars after all. What's really special about this book, there's so many things that are special about this book, but one of the things that I think is really special is it's told in sort of alternating chapters. Some chapters are told from the perspective of Rez, from the rover himself, and others are letters to Rez from one of the scientist's daughters, who is upset that her mom spends so much time at work working on Rez rather than being at home with her. And those letters continue for many, many years beyond when Rez finally takes off to Mars. And this like alternative perspective really gives us, frankly, an exploration of what it means to be human, both from Rez's perspective, who's trying to figure out what human beings are, and from Sophie's perspective, who's trying to understand her mom and herself and life in general, and uses Rez as sort of like a person to write to, someone to write all these questions and problems.
Hey, Jen.
Yeah.
That sounds fascinating. Sometimes the outside interpretation of what it is to be human, like by a machine, it's so insightful. You have me even more excited just with that wrinkle or that nuance there.
That's exactly it. As Rez tries to figure out what makes humans tick, he recognizes some of those things in himself and begins to worry about whether or not he is up for this challenge of going to Mars, but also stumbles upon what are the most beautiful, important aspects of being human and why we want to discover new things, etc. So it's so beautifully read. It's such a like delight for me to find books at the end of the year that are in my like top 5 of the year or whatever. But this one definitely is at the top of my list. It's like a perfect middle grade novel. It's called A Rover Story. It's by Jasmine Warga. And I'm going to need a drum roll here, Brad.
I had to do an air drum roll because I was worried about hitting my space bar again and turning off the sound.
So. Last week, we teased that we were going to kick off the fall season, our Literacy O Lantern season, by sharing maybe 1 or 2 Literacy O Lantern creations. And for those folks who aren't familiar with what a Literacy Lantern is, or lantern is, sometimes they go by, I've heard them called storybook pumpkins, but they're the practice of painting or drawing a scene or a character from your favorite book on a pumpkin during the fall season. And sometimes those are shared as displays. Sometimes they're put on parades. Sometimes kids give book talks with their pumpkins. There's lots of fun things that you can do with Literacy O Lanterns. Did I get that right, Brad?
Yeah, you described it so well. If you were to go to hashtag Literacy O Lantern, singular, and then hashtag Literacy O Lanterns, plural, on Twitter, for example, there's quite a few pictures over the years. They're just fun and inspiring. I think one of the coolest things I've enjoyed about them is their ability to create or generate conversation
Yes.
and connection between people. Some of it book related, some of it not. It's pretty cool.
Right. And I just think it's fun to see kids' interpretation of the characters, you know. Kids do a better job, I think, sometimes than we do of not taking things literally. So their interpretation of characters or the story are super insightful. Whereas adults, you know, we're trying to paint an exact replica of the character or whatever. And I just love that.
That is a perfect entry point for me because I had a student has seen pumpkins in my office last week or two and been wanting to paint. And the answer had been yes, yes, yes. Well, today when I got one I had painted, one I saved for obvious reasons. But when it got time to paint today, he took it in a different direction that I was thinking. And I had to kind of release the control.
Yeah.
But that was the ownership and the love and his interpretation. And boy, did we have a blast. It was messy, but we had a blast. Is it okay if I just dive right in?
Sure.
You got me so excited. So my book, it's actually what I book talked a week or two ago. It is The Circles Around Us. That'll be my literacy O-lantern conversion. So if you want to try to guess what it might look like, I'm actually going to start, before I get to the literacy O-lantern, I'm going to show the favorite page that students have had at our school. And it's a page where the word hello is written in many different language, or a greeting in many language. Our kids at our school just love seeing, you know, we have over 20 home languages spoken at Greenwood, and it's just cool to create the buzz. So I thought, okay, I got to have that aspect on a literacy language or in a literacy O-lantern. This thing is still wet, so I'm going to do the best to hold it and show you. And this was a team effort. So I had kind of an idea of what it would look like, but we took some greetings. I don't know if you can see them.
I do.
And obviously it's a little more, I don't know, bright and colorful and creative than I was expecting, but awesome. That actually makes me feel good when I looked at it.
Yay.
When he created. And then the title page that I always like to do, or the
look at you got it hidden back
there. Is right here.
How lovely. Yes, I love it.
So this is from obviously from the book, the person drawing the chalk lines around. So that's my hashtag literacy O-lantern.
I love the way you painted the entire pumpkin. I did it for both of them. Like you went all out and painted the whole pumpkins. And one of them like is brightly like multicolored, and then the other one is the solid white. I love that. I did not do that. I only painted part of the pumpkin because I felt like the background color of the pumpkin sort of was close to what I wanted on the cover anyway, or on the front, or close to the cover of the book. So I ended up being inspired and doing mine for a Rover story. And I want to show you my interpretation of red.
Jenn, it's amazing.
On the pumpkin.
Oh my gosh.
Up there on his rock, and some aspects of it I love, some aspects of it of course I would do again, but I had so much fun doing it. And so here, hold yours up with your book, and I'll hold up mine. Oops, wrong book. Let's hold it up.
So I'm noticing on yours, Jenn, I'm noticing, I didn't notice this on the book's cover, but is there is that a gas can in the Rover, or is that a head of a robot?
Well, I don't know. I sort of interpreted, see what was on the back there, and I picked out the aspects I thought I was capable of doing.
Yeah, well, you did great.
So, I put those on there, but I don't know. That's the wonderful thing about like illustrations like this. We get descriptions of res in the book, but then when you see the actual cover, it's like a lot of those things could be so many different things.
Yeah, but you made me notice things I didn't notice on the cover. So it's a treat. It's almost like you just gave me a gift within a gift. I want to try to copy you and hold my book up and the pumpkin, kind of like you are.
Yeah, let's do it at the same time.
It's harder than it looks.
It is. It really is.
There we go.
Let's not drop our pumpkins and have like a pumpkin catastrophe.
Way to go, Jenn.
I
There's
love it.
nobody I
I love
would
it.
rather literacy o lantern with than you. That was fun.
You know
That was
what?
cool.
That's high praise right there. And I will take it and right back at you, my friend. You know, though, I'm real excited to see what others create this season, this fall season. So if you have your students or you yourself get inspired and want to do a literacy lantern or 2 or 3 or 10, Brad Gustafson in years past has done many, many, many. If you go to his website, adjustingcourse.com, right? Is that correct? Adjustingcourse.com, is that correct?
BradGustafson.com. Changed it. Yeah.
BradGustafson.com. I apologize. BradGustafson.com. You go there and you look up Literacy Lanterns. You will see his many, many creations over the years. They are gorgeous. And we want to add yours to the collection. So if you create them or your readers do, please share them with us on social media. You can tag us. You can use the hashtag Read This Now. You can use the hashtag Literacy Lantern or Literacy Lanterns. Doesn't matter. There's no wrong way, only your way. But make sure that we see it because we would love to be able to take in and enjoy your creations and the creations your readers come up with.
Love it, love it, love it. Can't wait to see what people create. I loved your composition on your Literacy Lantern and how you had, it was incredible, Jen. I won't gush for a long time. I could though, I could. It was awesome.
That is very sweet because you're a bona fide artist. And so as I told Brad at the beginning before we hit record, I was pretty confident I'd done just about as well as a 4th or 5th grader could do. So I felt pretty good about that. But Brad is an accomplished artist. So I appreciate
thanks a lot, Jen.
Thank you.
For all the people who are checking this out right now, if you're interested in past book talks Jen and I have done, or just a list kind of titles and authors and links, just go to bit.ly/read_this_now, and you will be able to feast on a cornucopia of good books.
Listen to all that like autumn.
I don't know where that came from.
I loved it. I loved it.
The pumpkins put me in the mood.
That's it. That's it. Thank you, my friend. And thank you to our 3.5 viewers. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Happy reading, everyone.